to call this meeting to order. Ms. Nestor-Jelen, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Skip Daly.
Present.
Pamela Davidson.
Present. Present.
Guy Loftman.
Present.
Dee Owens.
She may not be able to make it. Is she present? I don't think she'll
Margaret Clements.
be here.
Okay, so we have 4 members attending in person and a quorum.
Okay, great. Well, is there a motion to introduce the evidence?
I move we introduce the evidence.
Second?
I will second that.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Board of Zoning Appeals Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the motion to introduce evidence.
The evidence.
The evidence.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. A vote yes is a vote to approve the introduction of evidence. Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Skip Daly.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, now is there a motion to approve the agenda? Please note that the lay detached accessory dwelling unit at 353 North Knapp Road has been withdrawn by the petitioner. So if anyone is here for that petition, we will not be hearing it tonight. But I suspect no one is. So is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. A vote yes is to approve the agenda in the order. Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Skip Daly.
Yes.
Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, and there's, on the agenda, there's the approval of minutes from February 7th, 2024.
And as am I looking at the right thing here? No, I'm looking at the wrong thing, so I take it all back. I will now try to get to the right thing.
So is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes of our February 7th, 2023?
24.
24, thank you, I don't have my glasses on. 24 meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the February 7th, 2024 meeting. A vote yes is a vote to approve the meeting minutes. Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Skip Daly.
Present.
Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 3-0.
Okay, well, there's no administrative business tonight, and there's no old business, so we're going to go to the first case on our agenda, which is variances number 24-15A, B, and C, and that's the, excuse me if I don't pronounce this correctly, Fincham front setback variance from Chapter 804, the Fincham detached accessory dwelling unit, condition number 55, a shared driveway variance, and Fincham detached accessory dwelling unit, condition number 55, buildable area variance from Chapter 804 concerning
802.
Chapter 802. Okay, concerning 531.75 plus or minus acre parcels in Bean Blossom Township, sections 2, 11, and 12 at 9550 North Bowman Road. If Ms. Crecelius, if you could review this with us, we'd be grateful.
Yes, absolutely, thank you. So just a note, so that the petitioner has applied for 3 variances, but upon receiving an updated plot plan, only 1 variance is needed and is being considered by the board tonight.
Okay.
So the petitioner is requesting one variance from Chapter 804 for the front yard setback requirement of 25 feet from right-of-way. Additionally, you can find the full requirements to have a detached accessory dwelling unit, or ADADU acronym, in Exhibit 3. So as you said, the property is located in Bean Blossom Township. The property is 5 parcels, 1 lot of record, so it's 31.75 acres total. This is the petitioner's letter on the screen. So they are requesting to install a manufactured home to be used as a detached accessory dwelling unit. The property is developed with a single-family residential home and 2 accessory structures. So due to the size of the property, I'm going to have a few images here to help us get oriented at what we're looking at. So this is the total property owned by Mr. Fincham. The green circle on your screen is the actual location that we will be discussing tonight, which is the proposed location. The yellow circle is where the current dwelling exists, and then hard to tell with the steep contours on this site map, but there is a stream and a very large quarry, well, not quarry, but rock wall. So anything on the south side of that blue line represents the stream is not real accessible. But we are looking and focusing on this smaller site up towards North Bowman Road. So the petitioners are requesting the variance to place a manufactured home for the petitioner's son and family in close proximity to the North Bowman Road. On the screen is a photo from the construction plans taken from the residential building permit that is pending. These here on the screen are the construction plans, the footprint of the manufactured home, totaling 990 square feet. So again, on the left, this is the area that we will be looking at of the petitioner's property, and on the right is a close-up of the proposed plot plan, which is listed as Exhibit 3 in your packet. So we can see the 1-story manufactured home with the septic field to the northeast of the property, and with a drive coming off of an existing driveway that crosses, that it's a shared easement across Mr. Fincham's property and the neighbors to the south. So the proposed site plan shows that the proposed manufactured home would be located within the front setback requirement of 25 feet by 12.8 foot encroachment. In other words, the home is proposed as 37.8 feet from the center line of North Bowman instead of the required 50 feet from center line. So the property does have a 25-foot roadway and utility easement along North Bowman Road. So your setback starts from there. So 2 ways you can think of that, from center line or from your right-of-way. So in other words, the home is 37.8 feet, again, from the center line. Bowman Road is a local road per the 2016 thoroughfare plan. This just highlights that the petitioner and an adjacent property owner share along their property boundary an existing driveway. This, according to the deed, is a 50-foot roadway and utility easement and is split ownership between the two. So there's 25 feet on one side and 25 feet on the other. And the current existing driveway is about 12.5 feet in width. So I'm going to run through a few photos here. This is 2024 pictometry looking north at Bowman Road and adjacent properties. This is pictometry from 2022, again looking from north. Same 2022 pictometry, but looking south. So this helps illustrate a little bit that steep rock wall and that bottom area down by the petitioner's primary dwelling and the creek. Right now, this site that's under 15% is fairly wooded, so a little difficult to get close-up photos of, which is why I wanted to use some pictometry photos. So this is kind of looking at the general area that is buildable per our standards on their property. This gravel entrance would likely be the route that they would take to use as a drive into their home. So a little bit more of a view. Here we can see North Bowman Road on the left side of the photo, the shared driveway towards the right, and the just existing gravel pad that exists on the petition site. Just an alternative view. And then this is looking, south along the shared driveway at the adjacent property. So as part of most variance requests, we review alternative locations. In this scenario, we were reviewing this variance request for practical difficulties. Planning staff reviewed alternative locations on the petition site for the proposed structure. In reference, the definition of practical difficulties for variance purposes means that a significant development limitation that A, arises from conditions on the property that do not generally exist in the area, i.e. the property conditions create a relatively unique development problem, and C, cannot be reasonably addressed through the redesign or relocation of the development, building, structure, existing or proposed. So staff investigated the field near the primary dwelling as an alternative location for the accessory dwelling unit. This is shown in red on the main picture on the screen. This is actually, if you see faint green lines, we are looking at a geological soil survey. So staff observed that the soils were wet, close to a large creek with many moist soil species. The Monroe County Soil Survey identifies that this soil type is called burnside silt loam and that they are not compatible for a dwelling and or a septic system. And you can find that information in Exhibit 5 from the county soil survey. The soil survey describes the soil type as severely limited for building sites because of occasional flooding. It would be better to select an alternate site. It is severely limited for local roads because it is subject to occasional flooding. The limitation for septic tank absorption fields is also severe because of flooding and wetness, and it would also be better to select an alternative site for this purpose. That is a description under a table within the Monroe County Soil Survey that when looking for proposed sites for dwellings. So this is that descriptor. Backing up a little bit. So if the variances are denied, the petitioner would be unable to locate a DADU in the proposed location. However, the petitioner would be able to locate the DADU in the area circled in red above, which upon further review does not constitute non-buildable area by our zoning ordinance. But after an in-depth review of the area and its possible flooding potential, staff finds practical difficulties are met as the relocation of the structure is not suitable in this case. So planning staff has received remonstrance from adjacent property owners and was provided this list of neighbors in opposition to this variance request. Some of these people have submitted letters, which I will show on screen now. So one letter we have received before the packet was published by the adjacent property owners that share the existing driveway and easement. The O'Neills, and their letter is on page 8 of your packet. And then we received 2 letters after the packet was published, one from a property owner, Karen Smith, and another from Ryan Williams. Since this is the first time you're seeing them, would you like me to leave these on screen for a moment? Okay, so I will pause for a moment.
And has the petitioner seen these?
They came in yesterday.
So just for their review, I'll just give a summary that that they're opposed to your petition because this would be the third mobile home on a short road, and that they feel that a variance of this nature would bring property values down, that this mobile home would be too close to a narrow, dangerous road, that parking in another is another concern, as this is so close to the road, and that why this location when you have a large parcel of land. So that's it in a nutshell. So let's move on to the next one. And this is from another neighbor, Ryan Williams, who is opposed to the front setback variance, and he's a believer in code and following the rules, and he is sure that the proper outcome is for this variance to be denied. And he doesn't not want to look at another house from his front porch. So let's move on to the next one.
All right, that concludes the remonstrance we've received
Okay.
recently.
Okay.
So staff recommends approval of the variance VAR 24-15A for the Fincham front setback variance from Chapter 804.
Okay, well, with that being said, Mr. Fincham, you can come to the podium, and if you would kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Yes, but I'll do that afterwards, okay? So, Mr. Fincham, you have 15 minutes, you and another person who may want to speak about this. You have 15 minutes total, and then if people speak against the petition, you'll have 5 minutes to rebut what they said. So we're waiting to hear from you.
Okay. I wish there was a different location that I could put this, but there's not, even though I have a considerable amount of acreage. It's all either up and down, or it's in a potential floodplain. When I bought the field that's contingent to my original 27 acres, I was told at that time that somebody had tried to get a permit to build a house down there, and they were turned down for septic reasons. And so that being said, the Board of Health, when they came out, told me that there probably wouldn't be any problem of shifting it an additional 10 feet away from the road. And it would still lie within the area that's been soil tested, and it's within the degree of slope requirements. Currently, I understand it's been increased to 15%. And so I'm trying to provide a place for my son, who really has no place right now, and his daughters. And that's what it's about. And this is seemed to be my best option. I originally thought about putting the septic system closer to the driveway, but it would have been too much within the easement for the driveway, utility easement. And so this is kind of my last hope that this could be approved, and we have had threats from the neighbors that if I went ahead with this, that they would run hogs all the way up and down the line on their property, so that I could smell the hogs like they'll smell the septic. It's my understanding from talking to the Board of Health people, if there's any kind of odor, it's the septic's not working properly. And the slope is away from my neighbors in that area, so there's no issue there. So that's about all I can think of right now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fincham. I'm going to ask my colleagues here if they have any questions for you. do you have questions for Mr. Fincham, Ms. Davidson?
But in terms of alternate locations, I understand the soil quality. I heard all that about the quality of the soil, how poor it is for foundations. In the past, have any engineers been out there to see if any site could be calculated, or is that a ridiculous way to approach that? I'm not sure.
Mr. Doug Graham is the engineer that's been working with me on this.
And it appears as though you've made some revisions to the plot plan because the other two requests for variances were resolved based on working with our exceptional planning staff. So I think that that's very nice. Now, did you, sir, have anything else that you would like to add? Okay, so we're sorry that there's neighborhood strife, but we're obliged to hear from people. I'm going to ask my colleagues. Mr. Loftman has a question for you, Mr. Finch.
I'm a little confused. I'm looking at the report, and the report says that the setback is 25 feet, and you're 12.8 feet in that. So there's an encroachment of 12.8 feet. If I understood you correctly, and this is what I'm asking you to clarify, you said you might be able to slide it back another 10 feet. Is that?
This is according to what I was told. I asked him to check the slope and see if it would be a problem of trying to move it back an additional 10 feet.
May I clarify?
Yes,
And
Mr.
help? So the septic location currently, which what the health department looked at, the septic location is fine. That's been approved up near the road. It's not within a setback. It's in a good location. They may have mentioned that they can move it, but the septic field is good. It's in slopes 15% or under. There is some wiggle room with the manufactured home. There's 8 feet before they hit the 15% slope, but staff supports having some space before it starts to get steep. So the septic is fine. Technically, we could reduce 8 feet of the 12-foot encroachment, but we support the location as shown in the proposed plan.
Okay, and if he could move back 12.8 feet, which I understand he can't, then of course he could build it, and I'm thinking about the neighbor who didn't want to look at a house across the street, and he could still look at a house across the street, but it would be 12.8 feet farther from his front porch if he could build there and we denied this. Have I got that picture correct?
That is correct. All of the requirements for the DADU are met except for this front setback.
Thank you. That answers my questions. Thanks to both of you.
Mr. Daly, do you have any questions? Okay, so we'll hear from the public now, and if there's anyone who would like to speak against this, you will have an opportunity to come back.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more word, if I may. This alternate septic site increases the distance from my neighbor's house by at least 100 feet.
Well, that's kind of you. Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Okay, so if there are members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition, please come to the podium and sign in. Or if you're attending virtually, please raise your virtual hand or call in. And if not, I don't see anyone, do you? Okay, if there are members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this proposal, please come to the podium and sign in.
I've already signed in. I'm Jeremiah O'Neill, 9570 North Bowman Road.
Okay, and sir, would you please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And yes, please, you have 3 minutes to
I'm gonna be hard pressed. I'll try to squeeze it in.
Okay.
All right, thanks for having me, everybody. I just wanted to take this opportunity to come speak tonight and explain the stance of my family and many other families on Bowman Road. There are 11 residents currently on the petition you saw earlier in the BZA packet against this variance being granted. This speaks for over half of the homes on Bowman Road, all opposed to this happening. Per the standards for design standard variance approval, it requires the board to find that all three criteria be found favorable, A, B, and C. If we skip down to that, section A, number 1, subsection 1, it would not impair the stability of a natural scenic area. Granting this variance would, in fact, change the scenery and the privacy we enjoy. This is something we have had for years since we purchased this home in 2017. If this variance is granted, it would create a devastating change to the use of our property, including the enjoyment of our property. So much so that it may force us to consider selling our home if this variance is granted. If this dad-do variance is approved, many trees would be removed, significant dirt work would be required, creating unknown drainage and watershed issues. We already struggle with drainage and watershed issues currently. Number 3 of section A, is the character of the property, including the variance, would not alter the manner or substantially depart from the characteristics sought to be achieved. So I believe if this variance is granted, it would depart from the characteristics currently achieved in this zoning district. There are no front setbacks impeding in the right-of-way easement currently on Bowman Road. The closest home to Bowman Road currently is 9485 at 46 feet, with an average setback of all the homes on the road of 196 feet. So 32 feet from the road is pretty close, and an encroachment of 12 feet, 8 inches. Section B, Part 2, it would not promote conditions detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the area. Granting this variance would undoubtedly interfere with the use and enjoyment of our property. The proposed plot plan does not interfere, does interfere with an existing ingress-egress easement of the O'Neill and Fincham's deeds. If this variance is wrongly approved, I would be forced to take a hardship and spend money to file a lawsuit issuing a cease and desist. Number 2, issuing this variance would create significant property and value concerns. Placing a modular home in the proposed site would most definitely lower curb appeal, marketability, and reduce fair market value of my home. Having a shared driveway with the Finchams is not ideal. Adding another home and more cars would be devastating. From section C, I don't think this has been met either. So no variance should be issued on this basis. A variance should only be approved if no other suitable build location is found. Per the BZA packet, page 6, in the circled area, there are some wishy-washy verbiage in that paragraph that was written by the planning department, but this is a buildable area, and a variance should only be issued if there is no buildable area. There is. And the board, must establish favorable findings on all 3 criteria in order to legally approve a design standard variance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. O'Neill, I do have one quick question for you
Sure.
before you leave. Permission?
Sure.
Thank you. Do you have accompanying evidence? You talked about the decline of your property value should this happen. Do you have substantiating documents to support that?
I think that you could probably find it, but then also I guess since you got me back up here, the burden is on Mr. Fincham to prove there is no other plausible place for this home to go. He's not provided that.
Just wanted to know if you had something. Okay.
I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Are there others who would like to speak in opposition? Please come up. And have you signed in? Okay. And would you kindly raise your right hand? And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Nicole O'Neill. I live at 9570 North Bowman Road. There's many reasons that I'm against granting the variance, allowing the DADU, or DADU. Most of them have already been mentioned in my husband's letter. However, I want to touch on the points that are most important to me. Sorry. When we moved here 7 years ago, we moved from an extremely crowded subdivision. My husband and I always dreamed of raising our children in the country, where they had room to run and play and explore. The biggest selling point for us was not only the beauty of the land, but also the privacy. For roughly 8 months of the year, until the leaves fall off the trees, there aren't any houses within direct line of sight of ours. Approving any variance and allowing this dadu in its current location would destroy the magic that made us fall in love with our home and our property. Our property line basically runs down the middle of the driveway, and that we share with the Finchams. When we purchased our home, we knew there was an easement in place, but we were of the understanding that it was for the Finchams to access their home. We never dreamed we would be in the current situation that we're in right now, allowing an accessory dwelling that's right out our front door. The current proposed site of the dadu is so much closer to my home than the neighbors' homes and the Fincham residents. From my perspective, this doesn't make sense. This would affect the Finchams' home at all. They will still continue to get to enjoy the seclusion and peacefulness of their home, while my neighbors and my family will not. We have 4 children. Our youngest boys, ages 4 and 6, have moderate to severe autism. Our home and property is a sanctuary to them. They feel safe at home. I'm afraid by allowing this, they won't feel that safety and security with others living so closely. I know that I won't with the increased traffic on our shared driveway they plan on using. I'm very concerned about how this might affect our home's property value. It would most certainly hurt our chances of selling our home if we chose to, as we would have to pass the dadu every time that you arrive and leave our home. It would impair the natural and scenic landscape in our area, along with the fact that it strips away the privacy and freedom that we value and cherish. Just for a moment, I ask that you put yourself in my shoes. You purchased a home with property that you love, a place that brings you peace at the end of a long day, and then imagine that your neighbors decide to place a permanent manufactured home, septic field, and driveway incredibly close to your 6-year-old son's favorite tree swing. You might find yourself as heartbroken as I am. I'm also thinking about the future, 10 to 15 years from now. Living situations can change. There's a good possibility this dadu could be rented out to anybody, and we would have no say on who that is. We are good and honest residents of Monroe County. I'm asking that you deny this variance to help us preserve not only our home and the property as it is now, but the integrity and beauty of Bowman Road itself. Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill. Do members of the Plan Commission have questions for Ms. O'Neill?
I have one question. I read the letter that was submitted, and it said you were concerned about road conditions on Bowman Road, increase in traffic. Of course, there would be construction traffic during that time. Correct. How much traffic do you get? But no one has mentioned safety. I just mentioned it because I know I read that. So is that a concern as well, and why?
That's a major concern. I don't know if you've ever been out in that part of the county. Bowman is basically like a single lane road. It's like, it's paved, but it's in terrible condition. It's had deferred maintenance. It's very you can't have 2 cars pass at the one time. You have to pull off to allow another car to go around in most places. So with the increased traffic, construction traffic, that would take place, and placing this home would definitely impact the road conditions. And there's really no place for any of this to be. There's no places to park trucks up there. There's nothing. I mean, my kids get on the school bus. There's, 3 school buses coming out to my home every day to pick up my kids. I mean, it's going to be very, very crowded if that happens.
So that road has always been in that poor condition.
Correct.
And it's just gotten worse over the years, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And when you bought the home, the Finchams already lived next door with a shared driveway, so you were aware of that when
we knew there was an easement. Mm-hmm. We knew there was an easement, and we thought, okay, well, since the property line's in the middle, we have to have this easement in place. That way they can access their home, because their home is past ours all the way to the bottom. So for them to access their home, they have to come on our property. So there was an easement. So we were okay with that. That was fine. It was just until there is now a new home being placed right out the front door where this became an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Are there others who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, come to the podium or raise your virtual hand or telephone in. Yes, sir, please. Have you signed in yet? You have? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And what is your name, sir?
David West.
Thank you, Mr. West.
I live directly across from where this property is to be wanting to put a mobile home on. And of course, I live.
If you could speak a little more directly into the mic, I could hear better.
Okay.
Thank you.
I live directly across at 9565 North Bowman Road. I had this property for over 25 years. There used to be a schoolhouse on the property originally. It was built in 1905. We had to tear it down, but there was a mobile home on this property when I bought it. So we have changed that out recently and put a new manufactured home on it. That's for our retirement home. I used to live at 9585 or 9584, something like that, the brick home down the road. We lived there for almost 40 years. So I've lived on Bowman Road for over 50 some years. So when I moved out there, it was a gravel road, a narrow gravel road. We had to leave all of our windows closed because of all the traffic. We could never open them. So, of course, our house at that time was about 50 feet from the road. But it was divided when they decided to build the road on over the hill. They went through the front yard and cut off part of our home, the front yard. So, but now, with the road the way it is now, it's always been just a really narrow road. It's only about 12 feet wide in front. I measured it with the ruler, and it's all chip and seal, no asphalt or nothing. So, and in all these 50 years, I have seen traffic just keep building and building and building out there. So the concern is, you know, we're going to get every home that goes in, just the traffic, it gets worse and worse, you know. So, and the county is not doing anything about the roads. So all they do is come through and put a patch on it sometimes, and that's about it. But I got to looking at the plan of where this is at. If you draw a circle around all the 5 houses that's there now, with adding another 6 there, that is in a 5-acre zone, basically. There's no more than 5 acres, and years ago, we had to have 5 acres just to build a house on. You know, of course, times changed now, so. But my concern is, what are they gonna do next door when all this is opened up in front of my house and they got all kinds of cars are coming and parking? Where are they gonna park? Because they're too close to the road, they're gonna park on the road. So that's my concern, you know. And for manufactured, I have nothing wrong with the manufactured homes, and the value of the property out there is actually increasing. My taxes goes up quite a bit every year, so.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. West. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? No? Okay, so Mr. Fincham, you can come back to the podium, and you have 5 minutes to speak and respond to your neighbors about their objections.
Well, all I can say is that it's not my intention to create any kind of strife or whatever, and I've done what seems reasonable, you know, and to my way of thinking, that the only thing that is of major concern to most people was the septic location, and I think that that has been rectified, hopefully, possibly, and also the fact that they could look out their window and see another residence. Well, you know, I understand that, and you know, I would be even willing to plant some pine trees or whatever is covered so they wouldn't have to look at a house. But it's, you know, it's still a couple of 100 feet from my next door neighbor's house, and
you might not want to.
You know, I'm open to doing anything that
You just have to be careful if you plant trees near your septic field because the roots can get in the way. You know, you just have to be careful of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, except
That's
I
okay.
did. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's about all I have, so I just, I'm hopeful that I can get a place for my boy and her girls to move into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. So we're going to return to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and questions of staff, which I should have done from the beginning. And if you have any questions or discussion?
I have a question for staff. One of the comments was the concern that in future it might be rented to someone else, but our DADU requirements have a family member right now, do they not? Am I right about that? Because changes always go with the land. Could that be a future potential use down the pike?
Yeah, I can reference what page that is in the packet if you'd like. So it is a requirement of a detached accessory dwelling unit, well, any accessory dwelling unit as an accessory use, is that the property owner signs and records an affidavit stating that they will reside in either the primary dwelling or the accessory dwelling on the property.
That's right.
Yes.
But they could rent it out to unrelated people.
In the future?
That is correct.
Yes. Mr. Daly?
I do have a question of staff. In the testimony of the O'Neills, Mr. O'Neill went through an interpretation of how this does not qualify for parts of the criterion. In your submission to us, Ms. Crecilius, the only challenge that you laid out was practical difficulties. Did you find compliance with the other aspects of the criterion, and are we to weigh only on the practical difficulties or as a whole?
Yeah, we always consider the standards of approval for a design standards variance. So we found that they met all three items of standards of approval.
Okay, but you only mentioned practical difficulties, I believe, in this packet.
Yes, practical difficulties are not always met. They're a more unique definition. Do you want to jump in?
The reason we brought up the practical difficulties is because we would say the weakest point of the variance request is that there does appear to be another site where the dwelling could be relocated and meet all design standards. But upon review of that site, Ms. Crecilius mentioned that the soils are so poor in that area that they are referenced in a Monroe County soil report that it's not eligible or it's not supported to have a septic system there nor have a dwelling there. So we bring that up to your attention because this is a front yard setback. If they do not get the front yard setback, they technically could try to build in that other area and meet all criteria and not need a variance whatsoever.
Right.
But we don't believe that that's a supported area.
Had that other area been deemed completely unbuildable, would this have not required a variance because you found that practical difficulties were met, or would it still need the variance approval?
As designed, it would still need a front yard setback variance.
Okay.
So to me, the practical difficulties have to do with the location of the septic field and the proximity of that septic field to the detached accessory dwelling unit. And that's what it seems like.
Okay. And when did you receive the remonstrance communication from the O'Neills?
I've been in touch with them for the last 2 months as this
Okay.
petition has been continued once.
So you've been aware of their concerns for all three criteria, not just practical difficulties and,
I've received their letter, which was published with the packet. Their statement is new information to me.
all right, thank you.
You have questions of staff, or?
Well, I'm ready to think out loud.
Yes, that's what I'm ready to do. Let's discuss it among ourselves. Mr. Loftman, go, chair, lead the way.
Well, I am hesitant to approve this. One of the things I think is important at this level of government is neighborhood concerns. And this is given the size of this neighborhood, as I understand it, this is overwhelming concern on the part of the neighbors. They're concerned it will impair the stability of what is now a relatively natural scene by putting a house in it. It's going to, the road will certainly have more traffic than this property would otherwise. I'm concerned about parking. The number A3, the character would not be altered in manner that substantially departs from the characteristics sought to be achieved. Well, to me, the zoning, according to the zoning ordinances, they just can't build this house there. And I'm not satisfied that it would achieve the relevant zoning district. The traffic has grown, and it's going to be more traffic. Now, other people, if you increase the number of houses that can be built, which is what we do, of residences that can be built, that always changes and there's no, we haven't seen anything about concerns on parking. So I don't see that we meet condition A, certainly not everything about condition A. So if we don't meet all the conditions of A, and B2, it would not promote conditions detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the area. Now, they give ponding of water physical difficulties, stormwater, natural courses, and it won't interfere with that, but the other, it's got an et cetera there, and the neighbors have testified that they think it will interfere with their use and enjoyment of the property. And they are concerned that it will reduce their property values. I agree there's no evidence that they've introduced, but they can state their opinion that it would, and I think that opinion is admissible and appropriate to consider. I'm not ready to make a motion because I want to hear what other people are thinking, but I'm hesitant to grant this.
Mr. Daly?
I'll think aloud with you, and I don't have my mind set one way or the other, but I will remind you that you brought to point earlier that had this not been for 4.8 feet, they would not need to be in front of us. So I suppose I'm rhetorically asking you, does that 4.8 feet jeopardize the conditions of where you're going with A, B, and C on here not being met, or does the project as a whole?
Well, the project as a whole is certainly
right.
what I would look at, and I would say...
And we're looking at the either 4.8 feet or the 12.8 feet based upon whether he moves it that remainder. We're not necessarily looking at this as a project as a whole. my ability and right to swing my arms ends at your nose.
Well, we've had some where it was 0.2 of a foot, and that gets to be within the measuring standard of error. But
I would like to just insert one thing for the sake of deliberation at this point. Staff has raised an issue, and Mr. Fincham has referred to it as well, that the soils on the property are really, this is the best location environmentally for this dadu structure, and that in A4, that it would adequately address any other significant public health, safety, and welfare concerns raised during the hearing. Seems as though the location would satisfy that because they've worked with staff, they've adjusted 2 of the variance requests about the shared driveway and the buildable area because they've revised their plans, and that according to the environment, the soils, the septic, et cetera, that this location am I making that up, Ann?
No, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, so it seems that that's the reason why it's located, 8 feet one way versus another. So I'm just going to put that out there as we're thinking out loud.
And to add to that, Mr. Fincham said he owns 37 acres, 30, something like that,
Something like
37.
that.
And this is the only spot in that large tract of, well, I see you're shaking your head, but we have, the soil test is a problem. That is, I'm sure if there were alternate suggestions, neighbors would have made those to him because this is an important issue for the neighborhood. But that's a large tract of land to not be able to move your family member to. I can understand his frustration with that. We all live on small roads in this county. I live in a very small road. I know exactly what you mean. And when a house went across the street from me and changed my view, I know exactly what that feels like. When the fence went up, I know exactly what that feels like. But what can I say? They made that choice, and there it sits. And all we did is visit about it. So I have some concern because land has to be able to be used, and to move family members close, that is a constant refrain we hear in these cases. Constant. Family members close for all sorts of valid reasons, which we should be supportive of. That's, I think, and believe me, my heart breaks for the neighborhood because I hate when my neighborhood changed too. I hated it, like I disliked it. I disliked it. Good neighbors, thank goodness, but what can you say about that? That happens, development happens in this county under our auspices or not.
So what do you think, Mr. Loftman?
Well, the zoning ordinance says things can be done on some properties and they can't be done on other properties. The zoning ordinance says this can't be done. The neighbors are uniformly opposed to it and feel it's going to deteriorate the quality of the neighborhood. I certainly appreciate everybody else's perspectives because it's a hard case for me, but I am, I'm not going to vote in favor of this. I'm not making a motion because, we'll see if somebody makes a motion to pass it, and it may pass. But I'm not satisfied, given the neighbors' concerns, and you don't have a right to violate, you don't have the right to a variance. A variance has to be proved, and I don't think that given the opposition and their concerns, I don't think I see the petitioner carrying that burden.
You don't see practical difficulties have been met? You don't see that? That doesn't appear?
I don't dispute that practical difficulties have been met, but that's not the only criteria to me. All of these criteria have to be met. And I don't see that the only thing that has been met is practical difficulties, but that doesn't satisfy the burden of the plaintiff and overcome the concerns about these other matters. I don't think anybody disputes there's no place else he can build, but you don't have a right to build in land that the zoning ordinance says isn't appropriate for building, and a variance to me is given when there's fairly compelling evidence that it should be granted, and I don't see that evidence.
Anybody else want to say? I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say I'm going to make a motion to approve the variance 24-15A Fincham front setback variance from Chapter 804. The other two are no longer needed, so I'm not sure we need to make a motion. We don't, so we're only really talking about that. And the reason I want to make that motion is because I understand, I've listened, and there are some valid points. I totally disagree that it's not a perfect situation. But I believe the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community, a very busy, roaded community, which has always been a very busy, roaded community. It is going to change a natural or scenic area, but it's not going to impair its stability. It may make, that's number one. Number two, it would not interfere other than the construction stage with, what's going on there generally. And it would, the practical difficulties have been met, in my opinion. So I'm going to make a motion to approve it.
No, not normally. No, you've written a letter, 2 letters, and usually it's the petitioner who has the right of rebuttal.
Sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Daly, do you have anything else to say? No? I would, for the reasons that Ms. Davidson stated, plus the addition of the standards for design standards variance approval A4, that it would adequately address any other significant public health, safety, and welfare concerns raised during the hearing on the requested variance, and that has to do especially with the soil types and the location of the septic field, and that it would adequately address any other significant property use and value concerns raised during the hearing on the requested variance, and that has to do with Mr. Fincham's ability to use his property for his family, and that he owns the property and he has a right to enjoy that property, and that this is the minimum variance necessary to eliminate practical difficulties in the use of the property. That's along with the fact that it would be approved, if Ms. Davidson agrees, subject to the Highway Department approval that should allay the concerns of the neighbors. Now, with that being said, I'm going to second the motion, but I also would like to say that it's really important to all of us here, like what Mr. Loftman said. We care about how the community gets along. We care about cooperation. We care about the stewardship of not only the common road, the common driveway, the rearing of children in a healthy manner. We care about that. So we all do. So with that, I'm seconding Ms. Davidson's motion, and then we'll have a vote.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-24-15A, which is the Fincham front yard setback variance to Chapter 804. A vote yes is a vote to approve the variance. Skip Daly,
extremely heartfelt testimony. But I don't know that there's enough evidence in front of me to overturn the staff's recommendation and to demonstrate that practical difficulties and the other two criterion have not been met. So I will vote to approve.
Okay, Guy Loftman,
No.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Okay, the vote carries approval 3-1.
So the motion has passed. Yes, sir, Mr. West. You can say something just in the interest of keeping the public peace. Could you come to the
Come to the
microphone,
mic, please.
sir?
I can't hear you.
What is this going to do to the rest of Bowman Road for the landowners that's got land up the road that want to put in a small portion of land and close to the road? Going to take place? Are you going to okay all of these? And
It will be on a case-by-case basis. And this, of course, is still subject to the Highway Department's approval. So the Highway Department could come in and say, no, this does not work, it will create too much traffic, and it will not work. The Highway Department could say that.
Well,
Or,
sir, the buck does not stop here. The Highway Department has to move in and bless this project. We were charged with whether or not 12.8 feet were deemed practical difficulties.
every landowner is going to have to go through the same procedure with a
Yes.
small amount of land and get
yes,
the thing. So,
we
on a
appreciate your
case-by-case
concerns.
basis.
okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. West. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Yes, Mr. Fincham? Could you
Please.
come to the microphone? We have to, this is where they, yeah.
I understand the concern about additional traffic and all this and the other, but my son works out of his home for the state, and so he rarely goes anywhere, and currently the traffic, while it may have increased over the years for that road, is still, we have no streams of traffic going back and forth. You know, it's occasional cars and delivery trucks and things of that nature. So I really can't see that any kind of additional traffic on our behalf would be.
Well, we've decided in favor of your request, and we want really for the neighborhood to get along. We want all of the neighbors to get along and to hopefully that it won't turn out, their worst fears will not be realized, and you've been very cooperative with the staff and thoughtful of your neighbors, and we're just hopeful that everyone can reconcile and cooperate and look out for each other in the future.
That's my hope.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Fincham.
Yes, and thank you for working with your neighbors. That matters.
Yes. Okay, so we're moving on now to variance 24-21. This is the Busey side yard setback variance from Chapter 833 concerning 2.3 plus or minus acre parcel in Bloomington Township, Section 15 at 4060 North Hinkle Road. And I believe that this will be reviewed with us by Mr. Brown. Thank you. You're not, stay, sir. You're not obliged to stay for the rest of the hearing. But you're welcome to. Okay, thank you.
Apologies, minor technical difficulties.
Okay.
So this is a side yard setback variance from Chapter 833 to keep a non-conforming shed on this property. The property currently has I'm s- I'm sorry, that point there is an error. There is a petition to keep a non-conforming shed on this property. As this is a substandard lot of record for the estate residential 2.5 zoning district, it is deemed to conform with the minimum lot size requirement, the minimum lot width requirement, and is granted a reduced setback of 15 feet from the side for general structures. But furthermore, according to Chapter 833, Table 33-5, a storage shed would be allowed to have a side yard setback of only 5 feet in a non-conforming lot such as this. However, the existing shed is located only 4.1 feet from the property line and it thus is encroaching into the required 5-foot setback by 10.8 inches. Hence, this variance was triggered. So a bit of background on this. The petitioner originally applied for 2 permits. One was a residential demolition permit to demolish an existing single-family residence and a cabin on the property. And the second was a residential building permit to establish a new single-family residence in place of the demolished structures. During review of both permits, which were approved, it was found that some of the previous property owners had constructed a shed on the property sometime between 2011 and 2014 based on aerials on GIS Elevate, and did so without first obtaining an improvement location permit. The petitioner then filed for an after-the-fact residential accessory structure permit, but it was found that the same shed encroached into the side yard setback for the property. And as an additional note, this property is in the Environmental Constraints Overlay Area 3, but there is no construction proposed on any area of this property that's within 18% slope or greater. And here's just the location map and site conditions map of the property, as well as the current zoning map and comprehensive plan map. And these are just some images. These are the cabin and home that are to be demolished. And here is the shed in question.
It's cute.
As well as the site plan that was submitted for the residential building permit. The image on the right is a close-up with the existing shed circled in red. And here are just the design standards, variance approval standards. Would the board like me to read through them?
Could you repeat your question?
Would the board like me to read through these approval standards?
I don't need them. Do you? No.
All right. As well as the definitions of practical difficulties.
Well, we've got them sitting right here, thanks to the packet. Thank you.
All right. As such, staff recommends denial of VAR 24-21 as it's felt that practical difficulties have not been demonstrated.
Okay. Okay, so staff has recommended denial. Now, do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for staff?
Well, I do. What is, could you show the picture of the shed again? And that's 2 views of the building, correct?
Yes, a side view and a front view.
Now, where is the encroachment? What part of this shed is encroaching? Is it the lean-to part or the?
That's a good question.
The side yard, or can you help me understand?
Porch?
Certainly. So north is, it might actually be easier if I showed this image. If you can see where my mouse cursor is, this is the shed itself.
Yes.
And this area is actually the overhang.
I see.
I called it lean-to, yeah, okay.
The lean-to, as you called it,
Porch.
yes.
Porch.
And
Okay.
it is encroaching, and as you can see from this measurement here, it is 4.1 feet from the property line.
And would you go back to that picture again, just to? Okay. So I'm sorry, can you toggle back now? Okay. So the picture's sort of backwards in terms of where the encroachment is, but the encroachment is the whole width of the building. The whole length of the building includes the porch, the lean-to, the extension, and the...
Yes.
And, are you saying, what is, I mean, they could tear it down, but...
That is correct.
And do you think they could move it 5 feet?
It could only require 9.9 feet, right?
It would require 0.9 feet or 10.8 inches.
10.8 inches.
The petitioner letter does point out that it seems to be on a concrete pad, but it is felt that it could be demolished all the same, and that would satisfy that would eliminate the nonconformity.
Right, and they bought it, but they didn't create the problem. They failed to recognize the problem when they purchased the property.
That is correct. The shed was put in without first obtaining an improvement location permit by one of the prior owners of the property.
Right, right. Okay, thank you for addressing those things.
Do other members of the board have questions for staff? No?
You're all
Okay.
looking at me. No, I think the last response by Mr. Brown states enough.
Okay, so the petitioner, if you would come up, you have a total of 15 minutes. If you would kindly sign in if you haven't already. And would you raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So my name is Tom Busey. I, with my wife Elizabeth, are the property owners. We purchased this last summer with the intention of knocking down the existing small house and I guess it's a cabin. The shed in question is on the north side of the property. The images that you saw were taken facing north. As you can see in the pictures, there are substantial trees surrounding this structure. There's a maple on the left that actually protrudes through the edge of the flashing. We have a tree expert who came in, and he said that this tree would do fine as long as you cut back the flashing, which we intend to do. So we anticipate that that tree will survive the construction. You can see in this photo here, there's also a barrier that's been set up to prevent the construction vehicles from damaging the root system. So keeping these trees is extremely important to us. The back side, on the right picture to the right of the shed, there is a sycamore tree that is also doing quite well. Our concern is that if we demolish this shed, we will adversely affect both of those trees, which are quite lovely and provide substantial shade, as well as barriers between their property and our neighbors. The shed itself is quite well constructed. It requires some maintenance to bring it up to code. That will occur in the process of doing the build. So in addition to building the new structure, we will attend to all of the needs of this existing structure to bring it up to code, including electrical. It does not actually have water. It's not possible to relocate this structure, nor do I believe it's possible to feasible. Our contractor has suggested it's not possible to shave off 10 inches, 10.1 inches or whatever it would require to bring this in conformance. It's not visible from the road directly. It's not directly viewable by any of our neighbors. I don't believe any of them are here. If they are here, they're welcome to speak. But this is a problem we inherited and only discovered this during the site review. So I don't believe this is a real problem in terms of the neighbors at all here. It's just it's 10 inches too close to the property line. And if we could go back to the initial slide there was a 0.3 that I think maybe was incorrect, or maybe I misunderstood that. So if the variance is denied, then it will have to be demolished. I think that is that the point that
the pole barn structure is admittedly in error.
That's not what I'm questioning. I'm questioning if the existing pole barn structure. So if this variance is approved, if I understand things correctly, we would keep the shed. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so is this point incorrect then, the third point? So I read this, it should read, the existing pole barn structure will not have to be demolished should this variance be approved. Is that the correct wording?
Yes, admittedly, this was taken from another petition and modified to suit this one. I simply forgot to delete that point.
Okay. And maybe just one clarification. So in the next page, it said denied. The staff recommends denial of this. That is maybe the first time I've heard of that, and maybe I don't understand the reasoning why the staff recommended denial.
Well, one of the reasons that he reviewed with us is that it was kind of a pre-existing non-conforming that the people who built that never sought approval for the variance, and so it's not in conformance. And so they are obliged to recommend denial.
I understand.
And now we
You have the power to
overrule.
I understand what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah, so
great.
sorry about that.
Unless you have more questions for me, I'm done.
Well, I have one question. You may
Yes.
want to remain it, and this is more for staff, and you may know the answer better. If you go back to the photographs of the structure, you see that photograph on the right?
Yes.
That there's an arm that's jettisoned under the overhang. And I don't know, is that exactly where the encroachment is? The
No,
10.8?
that's an existing canoe rack that will probably come down. The encroachment is actually behind the structure on the right that you're looking at. So there's
What did you call that?
the cream-colored structure there is a canoe rack.
A canoe rack, okay.
Yes, they were
thank
storing
you.
their canoes there.
Okay, thank you. But
yes.
the encroachment is on
Is
the other
on
side?
on the back side of
I
the
see.
right-hand picture.
I see
Correct.
it. And
yes.
do you know how much of the encroachment is comprised of overhang, so to speak? Few inches, probably?
I do not have that information. It's not a big overhang.
What is
Okay.
the overhang on that side?
I don't
There's a solid wall of trees behind that, which protects that view, at least in the summertime, from the neighbors.
Okay, all right. So we're going to discuss it. Oh, would like to speak, Ms. Busey? Yes, you can have the remaining, I interfered, but you have some time to speak.
10 minutes and
10 minutes
26
is
seconds.
left. Okay.
I agreed to
Oh,
what you were
yes.
going to ask me.
Yes, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I
Thank
just
you.
actually had a question for staff. I know that I sent out the required letters along with our own letter and the photographs to all of our neighbors. Was there any response from the neighbors?
I believe there was one person who simply inquired to the nature of the variance, but staff did not receive any letters of support or remonstrance.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, great.
So-
Well, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I understand rules are rules. However, in the interest of conserving structures that are, not encroaching in any way on the neighbors, this will do more damage to the neighborhood and the property lines than doing nothing.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, thank you. Now, we'll open it up to the public, and if there are people who speak against this petition, you'll have an opportunity to respond. Okay? So are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition, either here in the room, online, or by telephone? If you could please make yourselves known. I don't see, do you see anybody? If there's any member of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please come to the podium, raise your virtual hand, or make yourself known by telephone. Okay, so now we come back to ourselves for further discussion and/or a motion. So do members of the Plan Commission have any items that they would like to discuss?
Your turn.
I would note that this is a non-compliance by inches. Did you say 10.8 inches? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. If there's no conversation, is there?
I don't
Ever?
have, I was compelled by Ms. Busey's statement that to tear it down would cause more environmental impact and perhaps waste of something that's useful. I was compelled.
On behalf of variance 24-21, I motion for approval based on findings of compliance with all 3 criterion set in Monroe County Code.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-24-21, which is the Busey side yard setback variance to Chapter 833. A motion yes is a vote to approve the variance. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes, and just to make the record clear, I'm going to state the reasons for the standards variance, if that's okay with Mr. Daly. I'm voting yes because the approval is not injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, and the need for the variance arises to a peculiar condition in that it is pre-existing, and the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance would constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the variance, and it does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. So my vote is yes.
Okay, Skip Daly.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Busey. Thank you.
Take good care of those beautiful trees.
Yes, take care and enjoy your shed. Okay, so we're moving on now to the next item on the agenda, and this is the fish use variance for a guest house from Chapter 802 concerning 2.87 acre parcel in Clear Creek Township, Section 35 at 2593 East Pedigo Bay Drive. And I think Mr. Myers will review this case with us.
Thank you. So this property is 2593 East Pedigo Bay Drive, Clear Creek Township, Section 35. It's in the Pedigo Bay subdivision, Amendment 3 final plat. It's listed as Lot 1-A3. It's currently zoned suburban residential, and the use is single-family residential. So the petitioner is requesting a use variance to establish a guest house at this address. The subject property, as I stated, is zoned suburban residential and currently exhibits the land use of a single-family residence. The petitioner intends to complete the interior construction of a guest house on the second floor of their recently constructed detached garage, and the guest house will exhibit approximately 480 square feet of living space. The petitioner stated to planning staff that there is no intention of renting the second floor living space on a short-term or long-term basis. The use of the second floor living space is to serve as a guest house for the temporary visitation of family. We have on the screen the definition of guest house from Chapter 802 as an accessory building containing a lodging unit with or without kitchen facilities used to house occasional visitors or non-paying guests of the occupants of a dwelling unit on the same site. Guest house is only permitted in the Agricultural Rural Reserve Zone, the Forest Reserve Zone, the Conservation Residential Zone, the State Residential Zone, and the low density residential zone. So you'll note that the suburban residential zone is not included there. Okay, a bit of background for this petition. In January of 2022, the petitioner submitted a residential accessory structure permit application with the planning department to construct a 672 square foot detached garage. That construction plan uploaded to the application included a roughed-in sketch of a possible second-floor living space. Upon review by the building department and planning department, it was communicated to the applicant that including the living space above the garage would would require additional review and a separate permit application. The applicant replied stating that the plans for a second floor living space were only possible future plans for the structure at that time. The zoning inspector stated the options for adding an accessory dwelling unit to this property were very limited under the SR zone, and advised the applicant talk to a planner to discuss the details of adding an accessory dwelling unit if they were to proceed with the roughed-in plans as shown. In 2023, the petition site went through a rezone and land transfer through an administrative subdivision procedure. The subject property was one of several parcels in this area to rezone from being split forest reserve and suburban residential to simply just the suburban residential district. Had the petitioner met with a planner during that process and communicated their desire to switch the plans or to go forward with the plans to add a living space, the planning department could have accommodated a different type of rezone to possibly the state residential district. In April 2024, the planning department was informed by the building department that the petitioner was seeking a final inspection of the structure, that is the detached garage. The petitioner mentioned to the building department at that time that the second floor was to serve as a guest cottage for when their children came to visit. The planning department talked to the petitioner about the limitations of the SR zone and brought up the prior conversation from the zoning inspector during the procedure for the first building permit application. The petitioner indicated to staff that over a course of a few years, plans to add the second floor living space came to fruition and that they misunderstood the use allowances under the SR zone. Here we have two sets of construction plans that were attached to the permit application for the detached garage. You'll note the difference in the dates above. The one on the left was the original plan for the second floor that was reviewed and approved as part of the permit. And then the second set on the right, that was uploaded to the permit application after the issuance of the improvement location permit. Through conversations with the petitioner, planning staff and the petitioner talked about the Pedigo Bay covenants and restrictions. The petitioner pointed out that in those covenants and restrictions for the subdivision that a guest cottage is allowed. Planning staff informed the petitioner that private covenants and restrictions are not enforced by the planning department and cannot be construed to modify the provisions of the ordinance per chapter 800-6, which is on the screen here. And we have an exhibit of those subdivision covenants and restrictions as well that do include language talking about allowing guest cottages. Okay, here we have some aerial imagery of the petition site. You can see the lines are clearly off here, but it is this home where my cursor is, and then the detached garage is just directly to the east or down on the screen. Here's a zoomed in version of that. This is the guest cottage, or excuse me, the detached garage with the living space above. Here are some on the ground site photos of the driveway, as well as the residence and the detached garage with living space. Here are more photos of that structure. Here we have the letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals from the petitioner. This is included in your packet, as well as the petitioner submitted site plan that is simply the most recent plat amendment that extended the lot lines, and it also has there highlighted the detached garage structure. Here we have the rest of the construction plans that were submitted as part of the original building permit application for the detached garage. And And then here on this screen, we have a few pages from the Pedigo Bay covenants and restrictions of that subdivision. So in yellow are highlighted sections that talk about the declarant and what that term means within these covenants and restrictions. And then on the right side of the screen, it talks about outbuildings shall conform to or complement the architectural style of the main house and shall enclose a minimum of 200 square feet of floor space. Guest cottages shall enclose a minimum of 500 square feet of floor space. We did receive one letter of support. This came in after the packet was provided, so I do have physical copies in hand as well for any members of the public that might want to review these, but it is on the screen as well. I'll leave it up just for a moment. All right, on this screen I included the conditions that a use variance must abide by in order to receive approval. You are all familiar with these on the board, so I will not read all of them verbatim. And that brings us to the staff recommendation for this particular petition, which staff recommends denial of the use variance of a guest house to Chapter 802 based on the findings of fact. Specifically, there is no substantial evidence the property cannot be utilized under one of the permitted uses listed in the SR zoning district and therefore does not meet criteria 812-5D, which is the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. I will now take any questions.
Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for staff?
So what they're looking to achieve does not change the footprint of the structure whatsoever. It just rehabs the second floor of that detached garage into a guest suite for visiting family members. So it does not change the footprint of the property at all.
Correct. The structure was permitted as a detached garage with a second floor of essentially storage and proposed possible future living space. And the petitioner went forward with the proposed possible living space, and then it came to this.
Thanks.
Mr. Daly?
So what I'm understanding is the property has already been turned into this guest house. Is that correct? And this is against the instruction of the building instructors back in 2022, and they're looking to backtrack at this point?
So the structure is completed other than the interior of the second floor.
Right.
The interior of the second floor.
Correct.
Okay.
They were in the process of finishing out the interior of the second floor and requested an inspection from the building department, and the building department came out and said,
that's where I was unclear. Okay, so it's not finished. They're looking to complete that, and that required a visit from the building inspector from Monroe County. Okay. So that's what flagged this?
Correct.
Okay. So it wasn't the homeowner coming forward and saying, hey, at this point, we need to apply for a variance. It was, hey, no, you can't do this. And then, okay.
Correct. The petitioner articulated that they were they were not aware of the allowances for a guest cottage on the property.
And I have a question for Mr. Schilling about the homeowners association rules. They seem to allow for a guest house, right? The homeowner association rules.
Yeah, point of order, that's not before us tonight, and we have...
Asking legal.
Yeah.
It's a non sequitur.
Covenants and restrictions are not something that you consider because those are private contractual matters.
Right, but...
It shouldn't even be before us.
The only relevance of that in any situation would be that it wouldn't harm any other use in the area, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'm looking at in 2023, the petitioner went through a rezone, and if they jumped through that hoop correctly, they probably would have been able to do this, but they jumped into the wrong category, so they can't. Is that right?
Yes, as part of a plat amendment process and a rezone process of this property and other properties in the Pettigo Bay subdivision, they were all rezoned to the SR district.
That's right.
Had planning staff known that the detached garage was going to be completed as a second dwelling space, we might have talked with the petitioner and stated, you might want to take this opportunity to rezone into the estate residential district that will permit that use.
Did the original drawings, I'm looking what I think is the original drawing, the 12722, and it says storage and possible future interior walls, but it doesn't say possible future guest house. And I'm not suggesting that they do this, but could they say, oops, we made a mistake, and go back and try to get another rezone to ER?
That is a possibility. The planning department conversed with the property owner that there were two options moving forward. One, the use variance, and two, the rezone. The rezone process is a lot longer of a process, and the petitioner articulated a need to get this project done sooner rather than later.
But I'm always sympathetic when, if you'd done it the right way, you could have done this. Wouldn't have made any difference about anything except what they jumped into. And they just jumped into the wrong one. Presumably they didn't understand when they made that jump and didn't ask you, is this going to have a drawback? Because if they'd asked you, you would have said, yeah, might have a serious drawback.
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. If they asked you, is there a problem with this rezone that you see? Because we might want to have a guest house, you would have said, yes, there's a problem, right?
If they came to us during the rezone and plat amendment process and said, we want to have a second dwelling on the property or a guest house, planning staff would have opened the conversation of perhaps we at least change this lot of the larger grouping of rezones to estate residential instead.
Right. In fact, they all might have wanted to do that because they expressly have guest house possibilities in their Pedigo covenants.
That is at least my understanding, that there was some confusion from the homeowner's standpoint of what was allowed and what was not allowed.
Thank you.
I will also add, I forgot to mention this, there's also the county development ordinance coming down the pipe as well. And the proposed zoning district that this and other properties in this neighborhood are going to propose to be transitioned into would also permit the use of a detached accessory dwelling unit, outright. But if they were to wait, that would be the process under the CDO.
Thank you for bringing an additional pertinent hoop jumping point to my attention. Yeah.
So let's hear from the petitioner now. Mr. and Mrs. Fish, if you're here, you're welcome to come to the podium, sign in, and then I'll swear you in, and then you'll have 15 minutes to talk with us about the apartment over the garage.
Hi, my name is Melinda Fish.
Have you signed in yet?
Yes.
Okay, so would you kindly raise your right hand, Ms. Fish, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And sir, do you also swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, so then you'll have 15 minutes together to make your case.
Okay, I think we got confused when we were building this with all the rezoning and the homeowners. We thought we were on the right track. We thought we were doing the right thing. And we're originally using this with the thought of a caregiver's home. That's what the second story was supposed to be. So we kind of thought we were doing everything okay, and when we called to get the approval, you know, to see if we were doing the wiring and everything was right. Yeah, the inspection, that's where we found out, uh-oh, something's gone wrong here. And I want to thank Drew for all the work he did, by the way. But there was rezoning in there, and it was kind of confusing. We've already bought the flooring, and I think we have like almost $52,000 invested in this to move forward with this. Unfortunately, I think we're going to need a caregiver there sooner than later. We've had some health issues, and it's my daughter who works remotely that would be able to come there and stay for a month or two at a time. Also, the contractor's available right now. So we would like to move forward with this.
Thank you. Sir, do you have anything you'd like to add? You could come up to the microphone. And do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. and Mrs. Fish? It seems to me that this is just a matter of timing because the CDO is going to change it to making this request unnecessary in the future. But I'm speaking in advance of any other deliberation. Do you have questions for Mr. and Mrs. Fish? Mr. Daly? No. So we're going to hear from the public. And if anybody speaks in opposition to this petition, you'll have a 5-minute opportunity to respond. Okay, are there members of the public, either here in this room or online or on the telephone, who would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to this petition? If so, please raise your virtual hand, come to the podium in the room, or dial in and make yourself known, however that's done. So, do you see anyone? We don't see anyone. So we're going to just deliberate among ourselves, and then somebody will make a motion, and we'll make a decision. Okay?
I'm not
ladies?
clear. Excuse me. Did you get the letter from our next-door neighbor, the Cosners?
Yes, that was in the packet. Thank you. And they had no objections, so that substantiates that the property values around you will not be adversely affected and that it will not change the character of the neighborhood and things like that. So do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have any questions or a motion?
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
Drew, once again, the planning staff recommendation on this is?
The recommendation is denial.
That's what I thought. Okay. And my computer's lagging, sorry. All right. I do have some thought on this I'd like to share with my colleagues.
Yes.
The board has a history of not accepting folks coming to us asking for forgiveness, but for asking for permission. It is pretty clear from the outline that Mr. Myers brought forth, the timeline and the communication is abundantly described as to recommendations from county staff and outlined from what it seems to be very clear. I believe we would be serving an injustice to precedent if we approve this. Now, you might feel that, well, it's going to be allowed with new ordinance change moving forward, then allow that time process to happen is my recommendation.
I would like to add something, if you don't mind, because I don't know which committee it is that I sit on that we heard the petition to do this rezone. So basically there in Pedigo Bay, there's been kind of a lot of bureaucratic changes that could be confusing to property owners. It sounds like it's not a big deal to go from SR to ER and all of this kind of stuff, but when you get to nuances, like something that's already approved in the homeowners association covenants and restrictions, that may not have been the first thing in a person's mind. And to the Fish's credit, they have worked with staff. They haven't, they basically bought materials and said, whoops, we need permission for this, and they haven't finished it out. So, and they've been respectful to Mr. Myers and to the building department, and I don't, as much as I love government, I can see that this is a catch-22 for them, and I'd like to approve this myself, just so that they're not in a catch-22.
I'm going to make a motion to approve variance 24-22, the fish use variance guest house from chapter 802. It says
804.
804.
It should be 802.
804.
It should be 802. My apologies.
I was reading it here.
Okay, then it's 802
Yes.
then.
Yes.
Okay. And would that be because the approval is not injurious to public health, safety, and general welfare, and it does not affect the value of the adjacent area, and that that there would be an unnecessary hardship for them to wait till December when the CDO is approved, and that this residential choice was foreseen in the HOA rules?
You took those words right out of my mouth, Margaret.
No. Is there a second on this?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the use variance VAR-24-22 for a guest house, which is a use variance to Chapter 802. A vote yes is a vote to grant the use variance. Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Margaret Clemens?
Yes.
Skip Daly?
With respect to the integrity of the board and our past decisions and our future precedent that this will set, no.
Thank you, Mr. Daly.
Okay, motion is approved 3-1.
We always admire your rationality, but your petition is approved. It is approved, and enjoy that. We wish you the best of health and happiness. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on. We have two more petitions. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's so nice. We love our staff. They just really work with the public and with us, and thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, and that's VAR-24-23, Johnson minimum lot size variance from Chapter 804. And this concerns 4.44 plus or minus acre parcel in Salt Creek Township at 4230 East Merritt Drive. And I believe that this will be covered also by Mr. Myers.
Yes, thank you. And the address is 7230. Apologies.
7230. I'm sorry, I got a little dyslexic. Thank you.
All right. So this design standards variance request is for the construction of I'll start over. The petitioner is in process of constructing a new single-family residence in a detached garage at the subject property at 7230 East Merritt Drive. The petitioner was in the process of requiring an after-the-fact building permit for the detached garage when planning staff recognized the need for a minimum lot size variance, given that the property exhibits 4.44 acres, while the minimum lot size requirement in the Forest Reserve Zone is 5 acres. The prior property owner of 7230 East Merritt Drive and the adjacent property to the west at 7220 East Merritt Drive petitioned for a buildable area variance in the Area 1 of the Environmental Constraints Overlay in order to construct a driveway through the adjacent property of 7220 East Merritt Drive to reach 7230 East Merritt Drive. At the time, planning staff requested that the property owner combine the two lots for planning and zoning purposes as part of a condition of approval for that buildable area variance. In July of 2021, the Board of Zoning Appeals approved the buildable area variance without the condition of approval to combine the lots. The property was then sold in 2021 and sold again in 2022 to the current petitioner. In April of 2023, a residential building permit was issued for the construction of the single-family residence. However, planning staff did not catch the need for a minimum lot size variance at that time. The need for a minimum lot size variance was caught by planning staff during the review period of the after-the-fact permit application for the residential pole barn structure. The property is not in a platted subdivision and only has 4.44 acres. As I stated, the minimum lot size requirement for the Forest Reserve Zone is 5 acres, according to Chapter 804 of the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance. Here we have the location map, as well as the site conditions map. Here we have some aerial pictometry of the property. You can see the driveway coming through 7220 East Merritt Drive and into the subject property. And you can see here the single-family residence as well as the detached garage pole barn structure. Here we have some imagery on the ground. This is of the driveway on the left side, and then on the right is the single-family residence and the detached garage pole barn structure in the background. Some more photos of the site. And here we have the letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals from the petitioner. This is included in your packet. And here we have the certified plot plan for the property that indicates the location of the single-family residence as well as the detached garage / pole building. That brings us to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the minimum lot size variance, Chapter 804, stating, based on the findings of fact, and that practical difficulties are met and that any construction on the property would have first required a minimum lot size variance. I'll now take any questions.
Do you have questions for staff on this? No? No? Pamela? No? Okay, so if the petitioner's representative is here or online, you'll have 15 minutes to present your case to us.
And they are an attendee. It is Michael Andrew Johnson. So TSD, if you could allow them to speak.
Mr. Johnson, would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, sure, I do.
Thank you. Well, you have 15 minutes to discuss with us your request.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I apologize, I could not be there in person. I had to travel this week. But yeah, as was laid out, we purchased the properties in 2022 and then sought approval for a building permit that was granted last April. And then when we were looking to connect electricity to the pole barn, we were informed that we were in error due to the lot size variance problem. Since it is zoned forestry reserve, we needed 5 acres, and it's close to that, but not quite. So we're seeking the variance so that we can continue construction and hook up electricity to the pole barn.
Okay, sir. Well, do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Johnson? No? We will hear from the public. If there's any member of the public who is opposed, you will have a chance to respond to that opposition. Okay? So I will now ask, are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition or in opposition to this petition? Please come to the podium, raise your virtual hand, or make yourself known in some other way. Do we see anybody? Okay, we're coming back now to the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion. Is there any discussion? Then let's have a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve variance 24-23, the Johnson minimum lot size variance from Chapter 804 for the reasons that
Yes.
Margaret always lays
Yes.
out so well.
There are practical difficulties, and that this minimum lot size variance does not bother the neighbors. It doesn't cause ecological damage. It's just the minimum variance that's required in order for this home to be enjoyed. And so we seek approval on that if there's a second.
Second?
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the variance VAR-24-23, the Johnson minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804. A vote yes is a vote to approve the variance. Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Motion is approved 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Enjoy your beautiful view.
Okay,
care.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, we're moving on, I believe, to the last variance request of the evening, and this is VAR-24-24. It's a Chitwood DADU, condition number 53 and number 55, variance from Chapter 802 concerning one 3.95 plus or minus acre parcel in Benton South Township, Section 3, at 6374 North Shuffle Creek Road. And I believe Mr. Myers is on the line for this one again. Thank you.
Thank you. The petitioner is requesting a design standards variance to conditions 53 and 55 with respect to the detached accessory dwelling unit classification of Chapter 802. The petitioner requests the variance to allow for a second dwelling unit at 6374 North Shuffle Creek Road. The petition site measures 3.95 acres, which is under the 5-acre requirement found in both conditions 53 and 55. The subject property is zoned estate residential and currently exhibits 3 separate single-family dwellings on one lot of record. The petitioner intends to remove 2 of the aging manufactured homes on the property and replace one of them with a new 920-square-foot manufactured home back onto the property to serve as the detached accessory dwelling unit for his mother. In March of 2024, the petitioner submitted a manufactured home placement permit to the Monroe County Building Department to replace one of the 2 existing manufactured homes. Upon planning staff review, it was discovered the property exhibited 3 separate single-family dwellings on one lot of record, and the zoning ordinance only allows for 1 primary residence per legal lot of record. You may recognize this petition property, this petition site, because it has been before you already for a use variance that was to allow for the detached accessory dwelling unit use on the property. Let's see. So all other standards, design standards for a detached accessory dwelling unit will be met by the petitioner, other than the 2 listed before you with respect to the 5-acre lot size requirement. Here on the screen, I have the location map as well as the current zoning map. Here on the screen is an aerial image of the existing structures on the site. Some more aerial imagery here. Here we have the letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals, as well as the letter of consent from the property owner. Here we have a site plan that was submitted by the petitioner that indicates which of the manufactured homes will be removed and which one will be replaced. The one on the southern location, it will be replaced, while the one in the northern location, just after at the end of the driveway, is the one to be removed. Here we have a schematic of what the new manufactured home will look like. And we did have a letter of support. This was originally submitted for the use variance petition. I left it here as the language in the support letter is pertinent to this petition as well, in that they stated that they have no issue with changes to the 2 structures, be it removing and or replacing one or both units. All right. That brings me to staff's recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the design standards variance to condition 53 and 55 to Chapter 802. based on findings of fact, in that practical difficulties are met, in that a variance to conditions 53 and 55 are required in any scenario for constructing or placing a detached accessory dwelling unit on this property. I will now take any questions.
Do members of the BZA have questions for staff?
Nope.
So the issue really is the 5-acre requirement for the building site. And they're planning to take away 2 manufactured homes and only have 1 new and improved instead, correct?
Yes, so there will be 2 residences on the property at the end.
Instead of 3
Correct.
right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else? So we'll hear from Mr. Chitwood if you're here, or, yes, are you? I assume you're Mr. Chitwood. Yeah, have you signed in yet? Would you kindly sign in and then we'll swear you in?
Need an address, I guess.
Do you need an address? No, they have you. Please raise your right hand. And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So you have 15 minutes to review.
And would you put the mic a little closer to your mouth so we...
I drew the short straw 2 months in a row. Last guy in the house. Thanks for hanging out, Drew. And you guys as well.
Thank you.
He said it well. I got the approval on the 2024 variance for the dwelling for my mom. And then this one here come up, which I didn't realize. That's why I'm back this time, to get approval to get rid of 2, replace 1. It's smaller. It's 920 square feet, the one that and brand new. So
That'll be nice. That'll be nice for her and for you.
right.
So do you have anything more you'd like to say?
No,
I'll
there's
just
not a whole-
ask them if they have questions for you.
We know that the septic permit, all the other permits are in good shape, correct?
Yes, because Drew told me that I needed to contact them, and I've done that since the last meeting. I talked to Cheyenne, somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
She's a senior, and
Yeah.
she said she didn't need to come out unless it was, and I mentioned that to Drew. They didn't come out,
Okay,
but she said there was no need to.
cool.
Okay.
So
Cool.
if I have to do that, I can make them come out and look at it, but there's
No.
no issues.
We don't need you to spend any more unnecessary money on us.
Right.
So let's just see if there's any member of the public who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this. And if there's a member of the public who is opposed, you'll have a chance to respond. So is there anybody online or on the telephone who would like to speak in favor or in opposition to this petition? Please make yourself known. Okay, we don't see anybody, so we come back to us for further discussion and/or a motion.
I move.
Okay.
We approve variance 24-24, at 6374 North Shuffle Creek Road, for the reasons that the design standard variance criteria have been met. The approval, including any, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, or welfare. The approval is appropriate, would not affect the land use and value of any adjacent property, and it is the minimum variance necessary to eliminate practical difficulties in use of the property.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-24-24. This is the Chitwood Dadu Condition 53 and 55 variance from Chapter 802. A motion yes is a motion to approve the variance. Margaret Clements?
Yes?
Skip Daly?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Motion is approved 4-0.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chitwood. Take good care of your mother and good health and happiness to you. And thanks for working so well with our exceptional staff. Thank you. Thank you. That's nice to hear. Thank you. Now, is there anything else you need to cover with us tonight?
I would like to say, because I've talked with the tech people, everything worked perfectly for me tonight.
Whoa.
It was very convenient. It really helps me follow this.
Thank you, tech services. Thank you for all of your help. And I just really love hearing from everybody how good you are to work with, and how it just makes me just so proud to be volunteering for as a citizen for the county, to hear the people walk away with a good experience in the end. So thank you.
We appreciate your support and your service. Thank you.